Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jackie from Jack Gets Lost on a Book Haul. So, I'm gonna do my July wrap-up, since it's basically almost over and there's only, like, a few more days left. And I am trying to get my library book that I'm currently reading done. But then I'm not sure if I want to get it done, because my goal is to return it to the library before I leave on Wednesday, because we're going on a little, before Wednesday, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But if it does happen, I'm not sure if I want that, because if it doesn't, I'm going to want to check out another library book. And granted, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to turn that one in on time, as long as I get it finished. But then it's like, I feel like I'll have to still take it with me on our trip, so I don't know. I'm kind of debating. So every time I go, I feel like I have to check out a book. I mean, not that I don't want to, but then it's also, like, it's hard to explain my logic. Anyway, let me get to the point of this video. So I'm doing my July wrap-up. Unfortunately, one of the books that since I'm utilizing my library, some of the books I've read I do not have, or at least one of them anyway. So I'll talk about that one first. Let's see, let me refer to my... Oh, well, actually, there's, actually... Oh, wait, no, that'll be a book I read in June. Something fell off my desk. Oh, Uprooted. That's the only one I don't have that I read this month. So, Uprooted, oh, well, let me see. Uprooted was, Uprooted by Naomi Novak. I've been hearing about that book constantly, especially from Sam from Thoughts on Tomes, and I've been wanting to read it. So, and I wasn't sure if I was interested, so I didn't want to buy it. But lucky for me, it was at my library. So, I remember I just got very excited, because I was like having trouble, because our library is, it's very, its collection of books is not, it doesn't have a lot of books that I would really be excited to read. I mean, it has the other genres I like, but nothing that's, oh my god, I have to read, I am in love with this book, I have to read this book feeling. I mean, it's more like oh, I really want to read that, but I spend a lot of time in the children's section, because that's also where the YA books are, and even then, a lot of the YA books that are there, the ones that are new and just came out that I'm really excited to read, or at least curious about, are like from the contemporary genre, and I'm just not a huge, I'll read some contemporary, but I'm not a huge fan of it. So this was a very lucky find when I found Uprooted, and it wasn't even in the YA/children's section, it was actually in the adult, where all the other books are. But, that library has a lot of, in the town where I live, they like mystery, and I think that's probably because it's a retirement community. So, there are families that live there now, and it's growing to expand to, young families now, but it originally started out as it's a golfing community / retirement community, so basically those older people that really like golf. So, and I guess the older people like mystery and, historical, so, and they have a lot of that. But, I've been pretty lucky, even at the used bookstore, the used bookstore is kind of the same. But I've had a few lucky finds, I got, Scott Westerfeld's, The Pretties, I think, is the first book. I got that for $1, which was really nice, because they were having a half-off deal, and young adult books were $2, so it was half off, so it was only $1 and some change, which is totally awesome. And I remember one of my friends on Facebook was recommending the book to me, so I had to get it. But anyway, so I read Uprooted. I gave it 5 stars. It wasn't perfect book, but I think I gave it 5 stars. It's hard to read my stars because I'm a little bit sloppy with writing. Where's it? One, two, three, four. Yeah, I gave 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was a good standalone book. It's a fantasy book, in case you didn't know, if you haven't heard about it yet or haven't got around to reading. It's basically about this girl from this small village, and all the women, every certain amount of years, a young woman from her village gets abducted by this guy called the Dragon, who, he's not actually a dragon, he is a sorcerer, and, of course, they expect the worst. They think the girl is going to be raped or something, and the girl usually never never wants to live in the village again. She may stay there for a little bit, but then she ends up leaving and never coming back. And so this girl, the main girl, I can't remember her name. Like I said, unfortunately, I don't have the book with me because I had to return it to the library. The main girl, whose name escapes me, she's the most unlikely candidate to be chosen, or she thinks she's the most unlikely candidate to be chosen. She's not perfect, she's not seen as pretty, she's not perfect like her friend, and like she thinks that her friend will be the one that's chosen. Kezia, that's her friend's name, which unfortunately I don't remember her name, but I remember her friend's name. But she ends up being chosen, and then she slowly starts to realize that this dragon guy, he's not raping the girls or anything, he's training them to be sorcerers. He's tapping into some hidden power inside of them, and she starts to learn about magic and, and how to use her own magic and tap into it, and she seems to be even more powerful than he is. And then there's this other plot going on in the story where there's their village in his tower where the dragon lives is, like, there's this powerful wood beyond, like, near their village that will, has taken people prisoner and has kept them locked up, and they fear this wood, and the girl's friend gets captured by the wood and taken prisoner, so she, despite the dragon's warning, she goes to rescue her. But unfortunately, even though she gets her out of there, the wood has this effect on her, on the girl. And then on Kezia. And then they find this prince, the prince that, of the castle where the dragon used to live, and he used to be one of the sorcerers. This prince shows up, and it turns out his mother was taken by the wood. And and he wants the girl, the protagonist, and the dragon to rescue his mother, but she's been there for so long, so there's a very slim chance that she's okay, So they basically go on this mission to rescue his mother, and they fight the wood, and the wood is like this powerful entity and everything, and they rescue his mother, but something is not quite right about his mother. Even though she doesn't seem to be tainted by the wood, something is not entirely right with her. And she could potentially be corrupted still. So the prince and the other sorcerer, one that still is in the palace, take the girl, Kezia, and the queen back to the palace. And not Kezia, I wish I could remember the girl's name. The main girl's name. I remember, it's Aganitsa or something. I can't pronounce it, but it's a very fantastical name that I can't pronounce. So they go to the kingdom, and it's up to this girl to convince the king to send soldiers to help the dragon fight the wood. But Aganitsa, I wish I could figure out how to pronounce her name now. I mean, now I know her name, I can picture it, but I can't pronounce it. They are basically, she slowly learns that the kingdom and everything, the government, the politics is not, they're kind of, typical politicians. You can't really trust them, and they're very corrupted themselves. Not necessarily by the wood, but by having power and stuff, and so that's basically, I don't want to tell you too much. I probably already did tell you too much, but it was a very fun, interesting standalone. It was a little not as light as I'm used to, because I read stuff like Harry Potter, and I read a lot of urban paranormal fantasy, like all the YA, like Mortal Instruments and stuff, and Twilight. Yes, I read Twilight. Dear God, I read Twilight. And yes, I actually liked it at the time. I mean, I definitely now I see its flaws, but I liked it back then, and I will still defend Stephenie Meyer because, even if it's not the greatest work of literature in the fantasy department ever, I applaud her efforts. And her next book, The Host, is actually really great, from what I remember. It's been so long since I read, but that's a whole nother video. So it's a really, like I said, I gave it 5 stars. I really liked all the characters. I always have a soft spot for. I always had a soft spot for the male characters. They're a little grumpy and hard-hearted, and a little like that. I always like those male characters, and especially when they find romance with someone who's completely opposite of them and challenges them. And I love the dragon relationship with whatever her name is. I feel bad that I can't say it, and I don't know it that well, but I really can't. I probably pronounced it all right in my head, or when I was reading, I probably pronounced it wrong. I mean, although I think there's a pronunciation. I think I remember a pronunciation guide in the back. And I like the whole, and it was very fairy tale-esque. I like the whole fairy tale element of the wood, the enchanted wood and everything. So it had the fairy tale, but it was longer than an usual fairy tale, obviously, because fairy tales are usually really short. But I always like that fairy tale-esque type story. I mean, I always actually I kind of wanted to write one like that. In fact, I wrote a story as a child a long time ago that I read it, and actually, it was actually, for a kid's story, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it was still kind of you could tell it was written by a kid, but it was the one story that actually had a narrative. I had a problem, it was solved. It wasn't just the narrative like the first story I wrote, which was just a silly little story about me and my cousin going to my birthday party. And what we did at my party. But this one actually has a story. So I'm hoping to one day turn it into something. But, turn it into an actual story. I mean, and I think I would like to go in the direction of making it like a fairy tale like. So that one was good. I definitely recommend it as far as fantasy reads go. If you really love fantasy, I think you would enjoy it. It's kind of long though. It's not it's not the length of a YA novel. Although YA novels can be kind of long too. But it's very good. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so no, that's the only one that I have that that I don't have anymore. So I'll go for that. So I want to go with that one first. Okay, so next I will go with the ones that I do have. Okay, so I guess since the first one I have on this stacked pile, is the Olivet, I'll go with that one first. I gave this one 3 stars. This was a very interesting read. It was kind of written, and maybe it's because I think it was originally written in the 1920s, but had a very, classic novel, the classics type style in its writing. And sometimes I don't always like that. I mean, I definitely appreciate it because, but sometimes, as a modern reader, it's a little wordy for me and very dry and just very descriptive, and it's very dense and it's very complex. And sometimes, you just tune, when you're reading it, you're just reading it, But, I mean, although I feel like I have a very good imagination, so when I read, I can picture stuff in my head really well, but I give this 3 stars. So basically, the story is this priest, this Irish, it takes place in Ireland, this priest, and there's this couple in his parish that he finds out that they're not married. And of course, in his mind, being a priest, that is a sin, being not married, living together like a married couple, and lying about it, that's a sin. That is very wrong. And the couple insists that no, we have a very good reason why we're living as an un-American, living in what you can in sin. We have a very good reason. There's a story you need to hear. And the husband, he knows he's dying. He's on his deathbed, so he calls the priest and he wants to tell him the story. And he starts to, and he's like, you need to hear all of it before you judge us for what our choice. But unfortunately, he's too sick, and he ends up dying while he's trying to tell the priest the story. So it's up to the wife, Edna, to tell the story. And the priest is very reluctant to hear it. He still insists they are living in sin, and he can't, when he puts the notice in that the husband, Kevin's his name, is dying, he can't refer to them as husband and wife because it's wrong. He knows it's wrong, but she insists, and he does it feeling guilty and feeling obligated to, honor her wishes. And she tells him the story. It's a very interesting story. It's very, and it's told in one chapter, which is one of the criticisms I do have, but I will get to that in a minute. And it turns out, that Kevin and Edna are actually siblings. So it's a very incestuous situation. But, of course, it's one of these things where it doesn't dwell on the incest. It's something that just happened that is the reason that they are married. So it's not at all, it's not graphic. It's not descriptive on the incest. It's not like Jamie and Cersei Lannister kind of situation. It's more like if you read the book Flowers in the Attic. I just saw that movie months ago, so it's kind of still a little bit in the back of my mind, but it's kind of that type of situation. If you've seen that movie or at least read the book, if you read the book or at least seen the movie, it's kind of that situation. Again, Flowers in the Attic, which is a very interesting movie and very weird. It's a series of books. I don't remember the author's name, but you might be interested. If you are interested, but I warn you, it's weird. It's a very weird story. Now, I haven't read the book, but the movies were it was just very bizarre. And I know it's a story my dad would probably make fun of if he was caught watching it, if he watched it with me, like just out of boredom, if I happen to be watching it, and which I think that's kind of what happened. I think I had it on TV, and he was kind of watching it because it was there. So it's kind of that type of situation. So anyway, it's an interesting read. It's weird, their story is weird. And like I said, the one criticism I have, other than it was hard for me to get into at times, is that the actual narrative of Edna and Kevin and how they ended up, living in sin and everything, having this relationship that is really inappropriate. It was all in one chapter, and I did not like that. Because when I first looked at this book, I was like, oh, this will be a quick read, which it still was. I mean, it was only, I think, 145 pages? Yeah, 145 pages. So I figured, oh, this would be a quick read. And it kind of was, but it kind of wasn't, because that chapter 9 was super long. Like I said, that's the chapter with the narrative in it of Kevin and the story. And I wish that at least that the author expanded it to chapters, 2 or 3 chapters instead of just one chapter. I mean, maybe that was her way of shortening the book, making this book not so long. So maybe, her reasons are totally opposite of how I feel. But I gave this book 3 stars. It was very good and well written and everything, just like the classics, but it was just, the plot was weird. And I didn't like how the narrative of the couple was in that one chapter. So, I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. I like the setting, of course, because it's Ireland. Who doesn't like a setting in Europe? And if you are a fisherman, you would probably, if you have fishermen in your family, or you are a fisherman or a fisherwoman, you might appreciate the whole fact that they make references to fishing, because the priest is a salmon fisher. So you might appreciate at least that if you dare to read this book. I mean, I'm not totally saying don't check it out, but just a warning. Chapter, the whole narrative of Kevin and Edna is just, it's weird because it's incest in a way, you know. Of course, it's just a small part. They don't dwell on it. It's just said. It's just a way to explain why, you know, it's a way to explain the conflict of this couple and, you know, why they don't want to get married, why they aren't officially legally married, because. So, there's that. Okay, so next I will go to Fallen Kingdoms. I really like this book. It's a good start. It was a very good start to a book that's still a series that's still ongoing. I don't know how many books there is going to be. Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. I really liked it. I know a lot of people are critical of it because it's not like the best book ever. It's not like fabulous, and it's very similar. And the style is similar to Game of Thrones, where it has it's from multiple perspectives, it's multiple character story, and there's like all these kingdoms, you know, these 3 kingdoms in the middle of a war, but written for younger readers to understand, because, I mean, the Game of Thrones books is very dense. It's very heavy. So if you want a book with the kind of Game of Thrones type themes and stuff, then you might want to, but you don't want anything too dense or too graphic, because Game of Thrones is a bit graphic, especially with the naughty, like the sex and stuff, then this might be a good read, although it does have incest in here too. Just a warning. One of the characters, but, luckily enough, I will let you know, technically, the guy's sister, the guy who's in love with the sister, she's not biologically his sister. Like, I mean, you find out that she's not his, you know, I probably should not have told you that, if you're, so I'm really sorry, I just realized I probably shouldn't have told you that. I'm really bad at this. This is why I don't like to do wrap-ups, because I'm bad at giving summaries, which, ironically, that's part of the job. I am a freelance reviewer for a magazine in my town, so I'm supposed to write reviews for her, although, you know, it's easier to do that when you have more time to think about it. You know, think about what you want to say, especially if you do that right after you read the book. But I'm really bad at summaries. I never know what's too much to give away. I hope you guys don't fault me for that or give me a hard time or, you know, about that. I mean, I'm just kind of it doesn't then, you know, just maybe to let you know the incest, it's not really incest after all, but, so, oh well, spoiler, sorry. I'll get better at this, I promise. So I personally liked it, but I'm very easy to please, so you might not like it. You might have more criticisms than I do. I know that a lot of people will be like, well, then why are you a book reviewer? Or if you're going to be on Goodreads or whatever and give books stars, then you should be more critical. And I am trying to be. I really am trying to be more critical, but it is very hard. I mean, I just have a hard time finding criticisms in books. I mean, the most critical I get is if it's a book that I just have a hard time getting into, or I just don't like it personally, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad book or it has something I should criticize. I'm just not interested in it, and I just chose to read it because I felt like I should read more variety. But basically this book centers around, 3 kingdoms, and there are 4 characters, and that, you know, you have Princess Cleo, who, she witnesses a murder, and she's kind of gets caught in the middle of that, and the murder starts a war, and she's trying to, you know, and she's unfortunately arranged to marry the guy who did the murder in the first place, but for politics' sake, and to, you know, because her father wants her provided for and taken care of, you know, she is forced to marry this guy, and she kind of is struggling with that. And then you have this Prince Magnus. He's a very gray shaded character, but I like him because I like gray characters that are full of shades of gray. I mean, some of them that are really, some of the popular ones like Snape, I have mixed feelings about Snape. I have very mixed feelings about Snape as a character, and he's one of those gray shaded characters. Anyway, I'll get to him in a minute because I read 2 Harry Potter books this month. And he is basically desperate to please his sister, and his father, and he's the one who is in love with his sister, because unfortunately I spoiled that for you. And he wants to live up to his father's expectations and please his father, but his father's not a great guy. He's kind of an asshole. And he kind of is the one who wants to start the war between the kingdoms. So Magnus is kind of another character that's kind of caught in the middle, and he's trying to be like his father and be cold and not caring, but he has a little bit of a nicer streak to him. And his sister, what's her name? Lucia is the only person who really sees that. And that's one of the things he loves about her, that she sees the good in him, and she's such a sweet person. But Lucia herself also has problems. She has secret magic, and in his kingdom, magic is, like, bad. If you have magic bad, you die. It's like the Salem witch trials all over again. So she has to keep that secret, and she's struggling with that. And she's debating if she should tell Magnus about it, because she feels like he might potentially understand and protect her and stuff, but she's still unsure of how he will feel. And then you have the last character, Jonas, his kingdom is not an actual kingdom. It's a chieftain where they're ruled by a chief. It's like a tribe. It's like a Native American tribe in a way. And Jonas is the one whose brother was murdered by Cleo's fiance. And he is angry. He is pissed off. He does not like the kingdom that Cleo comes from, and he basically wants to lead a rebellion against them. And the chief is very pleased with that, because he wants to start a war, and he's a greedy little idiotic bastard, essentially. You find that out. The chief isn't really that great of a guy, and you can't really trust him. And Jonas, him and his friend lead this, this rebellion against them, and he willingly helps the chief and the Magnus's father kidnap Cleo so they can start a war and everything. And so all these characters basically get kind of caught in the middle of this war. And also you find out that Lucia might be part of a prophecy, that the group of these spiritual people believe that she is the chosen one to save the magic and bring back the magic to the world and save the people. So I think it's a really interesting, I liked it. It was a good start, and I'm looking forward to reading the next book, Gathering Darkness. But, again, to be fair, I'm very easy to please. I have my limits, but books I will not read. Like, I won't read erotica. I made that mistake once, and I will not do it again, because I'm just not uncomfortable reading about books that mostly focus on sex. I'm sure they're, good reads, but I have no interest in those. And I'm not a huge fan of war books either. But this was really good. I liked it. And I gave this... Oh, I almost fell out of my chair. Let's see. How much should I give it? Where is it? Falling Kingdom, I gave it 5 stars. So I guess it was the first book I read this month. Although, no, to be fair though, it's a book I had started a while back. And I just came back to it, so... Okay, so let's see. So next I have A Darker Shade of Magic, which I finished not that long ago. This was another first book in a series, a trilogy to be correct, by V.E. Schwab. It's my first V.E. Schwab book. I do want to get Vicious at some point, but I'm on a book buying hiatus right now. because I bought like 5 books when I went to SuperCon, so now my mom's like, okay, you need to take a break from buying books for at least 2 months. I think she said 2 months. So I'm not buying anything right now. But I'm also trying to get some of V.E. Schwab's books read before November, because I'm hoping to go to YALLFest in South Carolina, and I want to read a good amount. And I know I believe she's gonna be there signing books. So I want to try to get to that. But first, I have to wait before I buy tickets, because I know there's a lot going on currently with us. My sister just had a baby, her second one, which I cannot wait to meet him. But I will unfortunately not be able to meet him yet. So a lot of things are going on, and I'll have to just wait until we get back from that. But I do believe tickets go on sale in August, so I have to wait to bring that up. Okay, so anyway, back to this. So A Darker Shade of Magic is basically it's another fantasy. It's kind of an it's an AU version of England, although they really don't have England doesn't exist in the story. It's just basically 4 Londons. Let's see if I can. Let me see if I can explain this. You have Red London, where the main character Kel comes from, where magic is revered. It's in control and everything. It's like, you know, it's just part of everyday life. That's Red London. And then you have White London, which is slowly draining of their magic, and it's ruled by these tyrant siblings. It's not that great of a place. It's very wicked and evil type place. And then you have Grey London, which there's no magic at all in Grey London. Magic they don't know anything about magic. They don't believe in it. It doesn't exist for them, which is where the character of the other main character, because there's 2 main characters. There's Kel, who is from Red London, and then there is, what is her name? Let me see if it's Delilah Bard, she's from Grey London. And then there is Black London, which is basically a myth. Like, it is basically a world that was covered and cloaked in like suffered from magic. It was infected by magic, and and so they had to, the other Londons kind of had to seal off Black London from people and basically make it disappear. And then Kel, the main character, the protagonist of the story, he is a traveler. He can basically travel from all the Londons, and he, talks to all the leaders of each of the Londons. He trades with them, makes deals with them, and does all the, political exchanges between the 4 Londons. And he also kind of does a business on the side where he, sells things to people. And he gets this little stone from Black London. A stone that has very powerful magic, that when you use it, it infects the user with magic, infuses them, and gives the essence of Black London becomes part of them and gets inside of them, and starts to take them over. So it's up to Kel to get rid of this thing, but he runs into Delilah Bard while he's trying to get rid of this thing, and Delilah, she's this adventure seeker. She's a pirate. She wants to have her own ship. And she sees this as an opportunity. She's like, ooh, magic. Magic is real. That's so cool. And she's fascinated with it. And of course, Kel tries to warn her to stay away from magic. And she decides to help Kel return the stone to Black London for an adventure to escape her boring life. And she also starts to see the stone trying to take over Kel and use him. And she knows that she might be able to help him. But of course, the problem with that is, because she's not a magic user, she's not a traveler, she's not a magic user, period, there's a chance that she might not be able to go with him, but somehow she is able to go with him. And this whole story is basically about them trying to get the stone back to Black London, and they have to go through each of the Londons to do it, because they have to go through each of them each of the doorways in order. And they run into like another traveler, Holland from White London, who wants the stone, and he's being corrupted and controlled by the twins that rule White London, who are like evil bastards. They are horrible human beings. I mean, and meanwhile, his family, it's hard to explain but Kell lives with the king and queen of Red London, and he's kind of like their adopted child, but he's not really theirs. He's not their child, but he looks at their son as like a brother, and one of the twins uses his brother as like a little puppet, so to speak. So they're evil bastards. They're horrible human beings. They're being chased by Holland, the two of them. And it's just this great adventure running through the 4 Londons. I love it. Again, another great start to a series or a trilogy. I really enjoy it. I love, so far I really enjoy B.A. Schwab's writing style. And I like how this is set up where it's done in sections, where there's like 3 to 6 chapters in each section, so it's despite the fact that it's much longer than all of it, it's still a quick read, and it was very exciting. I loved all the characters. I definitely see why people like Kell and Delilah and Rye, Kell's brother, his adopted brother. And I love the concept of the 4 Londons. I think that's really cool. The idea of all these different Londons, one of them without magic, one where magic is revered, one where magic is dying, and then one that's been corrupted by magic. I think that's a really cool concept. And again, another book. Well, I recommend almost all of these books, honestly. I gave this one, let's see. I hope this video isn't too long, because then I'm going to have to redo it, and I hate doing that. Of course, it won't matter if I say that, because, well, if it's too long, then I won't be publishing this. I gave this 5 stars. Okay, so next I read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So I'm not going to really summarize this because everybody knows it's basically Harry's 2nd year at Hogwarts, and he comes across, this chamber that the ancestor of Salazar Slytherin created, and they're basically trying, and like the heir of Slytherin has opened the chamber once again after 50 years. And he's basically and he wants to kill all the mudbloods, blah, blah, blah. Not that that's not important, it's just anybody has probably read Harry, or at least anybody who's into fantasy has read Harry Potter. This was a great, I like this. I like the second one. I mean, it's not my favorite, but I kind of like it. I like the mystery aspect of it, the solving the case, the whodunit kind of situation. I think it's a good second book. I know a lot of people don't like it, and I admit it's not my favorite, but I enjoyed it. And we meet the Weasleys, we get to know the Weasley family a little bit more, which is really cool. And who doesn't want to be part of the Weasley family, or at least just stay with the Weasleys for a period of time? We hear about the Whomping Willow, which becomes important in the 3rd book. I think the flying car is awesome. We get a little bit of, we learn a little bit more about Lord Voldemort and his backstory in this book. And I think the second Harry Potter book was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I might make a video, wait, I think I already did. I gave this 4 stars. It wasn't the best sequel ever, but I still enjoyed it. I liked it. Okay, so next I decided to read. I actually just finished this book, Jurassic Park. I have seen the movie. Not completely, but I have seen it enough to, I recognize it and everything. And this is the novel the movie's based on by Michael Crichton, who is my dad's favorite author. So I wanted to read it myself, and I was looking at the time. I think I might have to remake this video. I thought it was really good, but my only criticism of this is that there were some parts of the book that were kind of dry, because, like, characters were explaining the science and the math behind the park. And that just, because as a person who's not into science or math, that was kind of boring for me. Because it was like a couple pages of explanation, it was very dry, and I'm like, okay, please speak English here, what does that mean? Which although it did explain it kind of in a way that's a little easier to understand, but it was still kind of like, it still was like, I felt obligated to read it because it was part of the story, and it was stuff you needed to know, so I read it anyway. But I kind of just read through it as quickly as I could. There were some differences between the movie, if I remember correctly, of course, because there usually is at least a little bit, if not a lot, of differences between a movie version of a book and the book itself. But I enjoyed it. It's kind of a long read, but it's, the chapters are really short. And it's very interesting. I thought it was kind of cool to read it, and it helped me be able to picture what was going on, and, now that I've seen the movie. So, I know most people are like, the book is better, or you should read a book before you watch the movie, but that doesn't always happen for me. And sometimes the movie is what persuades me to read the book. Of course, part of the reason is because my dad likes Michael Crichton, and I had already read Michael Crichton's Timeline, and seen the movie for that one, and I'd seen Jurassic Park years ago, and I've seen Jurassic World a lot more recently. I saw it when it was playing on TV, and I think I saw it when it was in theaters, when it came out in theaters. And I really like that one, and I also, because I'm a reviewer for a magazine, as I've said multiple times, I'm not trying to plug myself, because there's no way you guys can read this unless you happen to live where I live, but, because it's not like the New York Times or anything like that, it's just a local magazine, so I'm not trying to plug myself. The fact that I keep mentioning that, I'm not trying to brag or anything, I'm just not thinking about the fact that I keep mentioning it, but I just realized I do mention it a lot, So I decided I wanted to write I wanted to read some variety, because I read a lot of fantasy, a lot of YA books, and there's not a lot of people there's not a lot of people who I don't think would read my kind of genre, but my favorite genre of books. And there's not a lot of teenagers either, or people in their early 20s, well, I'm in my late 20s, but I always like to joke and say mentally I'm in my teens still. Which is a whole nother story, so I wanted to read something different, so I decided to throw in an adult science fiction novel, and I was familiar with Jurassic Park, and because I've only read one of Michael Crichton's other books, I decided to, read something that I was familiar with, so luckily I found this one. I might read another one of his books, like The Great Chain Robbery, or if the library contains the sequels to Jurassic Park, because I think there are 3 other books that Michael Crichton wrote from the Jurassic Park story, So this was good. It was, it was long, but it was quick to get through. Not exactly quick, like, I didn't read it within a few days. It took me like a week or 2, I think, I can't remember, and I had to recheck it out once already. But that was because we were going out of town next week, so I wasn't sure if I would be able to get it done before then, or I would be back in time to return it, so I rechecked it out. Unfortunately, the book I'm currently reading, I will have to do the same thing again, because, which, like I said, I'm not sure about that. I don't know if I want to get that done first, okay, so the last book I read, well, this is not the last book I read. Oh, I gave that one, let me see, I forgot to mention how many stars I gave that one. I gave that one 4 stars because, like I said, there were parts of it I was kind of bored with. But other than that, it was a good book. Okay, so then I have here, I read Prisoner of Azkaban, the 3rd Harry Potter book. It's the only one that actually does not have Lord Voldemort in it. And it used to be my favorite. It still kind of is my favorite because it introduces some of my favorite characters. Sirius Black and Remus Lupin, which was really cool. It was their introduction. And it's Harry's 3rd year at Hogwarts. And there is this, prisoner, Sirius Black, who has escaped prison, and they think he's after Harry because he used to be supposedly one of Lord Voldemort's, biggest supporters, one of his biggest followers, and that he betrayed Harry's parents because he was friends with Harry's parents, and and for some reason his parents found out that they were after them, so they were trying to go into hiding, and Sirius Black is their secret keeper, and that supposedly it looks like he betrayed them. If you read the book, you know why I use the word supposedly. And Harry finds out, and this drives Harry crazy, of course, naturally, because this is the guy that he is told betrayed his parents and are the reason that they're dead. So he's pretty pissed off at this. So it's a little bit angsty book, in a way. Also, because of that, all the teachers are keeping an eye out on Harry, and including Hermione, his best friend. So the relationship between the 3 of them is a little rocky right now, and she's being overly cautious, and Harry and Ron don't like that. So it's all kind of a tough, the storyline is pretty tough, Hermione has a pretty tough time in this book. And I felt really bad for her because she had when I was reading it, I was a little conflicted because I felt bad for her, but at the same time, I get Ron and Harry's frustration. But at the same time, compared to her reasonings, that's kind of like petty, but they're 13-year-old boys, 12 into 13-year-old boys, so of course they're gonna prioritize other things. So I'm sorry. Of course, this is because I've read this. I haven't reread this whole thing, but I've come back to this book quite a bit. As you can see, so it's kind of falling apart here, and I want to get a paperback edition to it. So this third book is definitely still one of my favorites out of the Harry Potter books. I don't know if it's my number 1 favorite anymore, but it's still on my list of favorites out of the 7 books. Let's see. I gave this one. Let's see. I gave this 5 stars, and that's probably because it's my favorite one. So like I said, I'm very bad at giving stars. I'm still slowly trying to figure out criticisms and what things authors need to fix and what flaws I notice. I was never really good at that. So anyway, that's what I read this month. So I would say it's a pretty good month. I was happy with it. And I'm currently reading, okay, so this is the library book I'm not sure about if I'm going to finish it, if I'm going to try to finish it before we leave or not. That is The Magician's Lie. This is a historical fiction. Goes back and forth between like the late 1800s and the early 1900s, where this woman is suspected of murdering her husband, and one of the officers trying to solve the case finds her and catches her, and as of right now, he's trying to interrogate her and get her to admit to her guilt and why she did it and how she did it and all that kind of stuff. But she ends up telling him, she is insisting that she's innocent, that she didn't know he was dead, that she didn't do it, and she's basically telling him the story of what brought her to this place where she might potentially be guilty. And of course, the officer, does not believe her, but he's willing to let her talk because he figures eventually she'll slip and admit guilt. And as of right now, I'm pretty sure that she's not guilty, that she didn't do it, and that there's a reason behind all this. But who knows? It might turn out that she did do it. Like I said, this is a library book, so far I'm enjoying it. The chapters are short, again, so I think I do like short chapters a little better, but that's more so if it's with library books that I'm gonna have to return in 2 weeks, and if I don't finish them, I'm gonna have to recheck out. So I appreciate short chapters, but if it's a book, my own book, that I didn't borrow from the library or didn't borrow from someone else, which I've never really done before, then I'm fine with long chapters. Unless it's a book that I'm only reading because I feel like I have to read it, or feel obligated to read it, like The Olivet, because, adding more variety in my reading for books that I review, so I felt obligated to read it. It wasn't a bad book, it was just not something I would read normally. So those are really the only times I really am glad that there are books with short chapters. And I need to get back to reading The Raven Boys, which I'm not that far, and I'm only on chapter 6 of that one, so I need to get back to reading that, but Tome Topple is coming up, so I might have to bring this library book and some of the tomes that I want to try to read for Tome Topple. So that was my July wrap-up, and that might not matter because I might have to redo this video anyway because it might be too long. Alright, bye!